Hello and welcome to part 1 of this 4.6 entertainment photo run guided tour. This will go from Covent Garden to Piccadilly Circus. Okay, so we're going to start on the first of these runs, which will be from Covent Garden to Piccadilly Circus. Now, as I said before, what I'll do is I'll show you what the run looks like first, then I'll come back and show you the history and some of the sites that are along the way. I think that's an easier way of showing how this area is put together. So we'll start off by having a look at the map itself that we're going to cover. We're going to start from Covent Garden, which is here, and basically just do one complete route with this, which is only 0.8 of a kilometre long, all the way down to Piccadilly Circus. So it's going to be one of the most simplest navigational runs that we have in this particular series, but you'll see that it covers quite a few interesting areas along the way, and it really charts the development of some of the entertainment growth as it moves from east to west. Now let's start with the run itself. We're going to do this at speed, and we start just outside Covent Garden tube station, and just show the map here, and we go along Long Acre, and along here we've got St Giles off to the right hand side. We've got Cambridge Theatre and Seven Dials, which is worth a look. We've got Stanford Bookshops, which used to just look at London maps. Then we're at St Martin's Lane, and then we get towards Charing Cross and Leicester Square. That's Charing Cross Road. Then we're into Leicester Square itself with all the cinemas and Leicester Square, which has got hotels and other places to visit. Then we've got towards the end, we've got the M&M, Lego and W Hotel. Then we get to Wardour Street and Chinatown. And then we move towards Coventry Street with the Trocadero. Then we get to the Criterion Building. And then we end up finally at Piccadilly Circus. So that's about 0.8 of a kilometre, and I think you'll find it a very interesting and easy route to get yourself started. Okay, what we're going to do next is that we're going to give a guided tour of the key sites along the way. I'm going to do this by showing you 360 pictures of certain areas along the route. This will give you an idea about what the area looks like, but it'll also allow me to show you the main sites. Okay, so here we are just outside Covent Garden tube station. Now just to give you a spin you all the way around, so this, you're likely to be coming out of this entrance here. That's normally the entrance to go into it. We have Long Acre going down this direction, which we're going to look at. This is the route that we're going to finish off when we go down towards Trafalgar Square and the theatre routes in that direction. This goes down towards Holborn, and this route, if we went down there, would take you down to the St Giles route and to Tottenham Court Road, which is one of the other runs that we go on. So if we have a look at what the area looked like in 1560, and just blow this out a little bigger, you can see it's just a straight route going from Covent Garden station. That's where Leicester Square station would have been, and it goes to Piccadilly Station, which is just off the map, and that's Trafalgar Square as we see down in here. It would have just gone along the edge of Long Acre, which I'll talk about in a second, and in this Covent Garden market, which was a market run by the monasteries to give food to Westminster Abbey, which is further down to the southwest here. Now this would have been an orchard originally, but we'll just move on and go back and have a look at how this has changed as we go through time. Now what actually happened within the area is we get to about 1690, so 100 years later, the area has been fairly well developed. Now this is a plan looking at Covent Garden, but it looks at it from St Paul's Church, which is just around here. Now this was a parish church, so it's a parish map showing you all the houses within inside that particular area. Now this area was originally given to John Russell, who was the Duke of Bedford, and he was given it by Henry VIII in 1540, basically taking the land off the church and giving it to John Russell. Now, what he built Long Acre, but he didn't do much in way of development. And it wasn't until 1625 when Charles I, and he was the one who got his head chopped off, complained that there were too many potholes in the area. But we couldn't develop this part of London because in the Elizabethan time they'd basically put a 3-mile exclusion zone around London, partly to provide a barrier for the plague, but also to protect against development which might usurp the Queen, who was Queen Elizabeth at the time. But he was able to build as much land as he wanted for a sum of £2,000. And this is basically what he built. Now, if we go back and look at how the area changed a little bit later, so if we have a look at the route in 1840, so we're now in Victorian times, you can see this is the other way around, but Covent Garden's now on this side and Piccadilly Circus is down in here. A lot of the route has been built up very much as we know it today. If you went down this route, it would be a similar line in terms of the route. Obviously, things would be a lot different. But we'd start off at this point and we'd end up at Piccadilly Circus. Anyway, we'll be looking at these maps in more detail later. Now let's just go through and give you some views of Long Acre itself. So as we've discussed, give an idea about how it developed over time. One of the more interesting things about Long Acre was a route going from this part of London all the way out towards Bath. So this would have gone straight out towards Piccadilly and then straight out towards Hyde Park and towards Bath and Bristol. This area was made famous for coach building, and there were in fact 41 sites of coach builders along this route, and as you can see, these arches here would probably have represented what those coach building factories would have. But it also did have some links to the entertainment. So there was a Queen's Theatre just near Covent Garden going back this way. And there, obviously, there's the Cambridge Theatre in Seven Dials to the right. There was also John Bird, who was involved in television, set up an office here. There's Pineapple Studios for dancing. There's the London Film School, as well as the Royal Ballet towards the other end of Covent Garden. Okay, so let's move down now towards St Martin's in the Fields. Now we're going to come and look at this area in a bit more detail on the way back, but we're basically just coming down this road in here and we're just going to continue along towards Charing Cross Road and Leicester Square. So let's do that and then we'll just touch on this particular area very briefly. So this is where we've just come through. This is a hippodrome and the tube station which we'll look at, but we'll go directly into Leicester Square. So this is Leicester Square with the square in the middle and the cinemas on the outside. If we talk about Leicester Square itself, we've got a number of cinemas such as the View down here. We've got the Odeon Leicester Square. As you can see, as we go round in here, we've got the Empire Cinema, and there's a number of cinemas towards the back end as well. Around here we have the actual Leicester Square itself, and just a little bit of history about this one. Again, it goes back to Henry VIII, but this was actually given to Robert Sidney, the second Earl of Leicester, hence the word Leicester Square. And this area in the middle was in fact common land, which was used for grazing of sheep. It was called Leicester Fields at the time, and it has remained the square ever since, despite a number of disputes that have happened to try to build on it. The houses were built around the square for the rich and famous at the time, but as with a lot of areas of London, as the entertainment industry moved in, the residents moved out, and the whole area was given over towards entertainment. So you had in the 19th centuries music halls as well as hotels coming up in this area, and in the 20th century those music halls and theatres were replaced with cinemas. So for example, the Alhambra Theatre, which was sat in here, became the Odeon in 1937, and then the Empire Theatre, which was here, became a cinema in 1920. The View, which is over here, was the Daily Theatre, and that became Warner Brothers in 1937. So this would be the nearest thing that we would get to a Hollywood centre for the UK, but it's more a historic centre with the theatres and the cinemas. But in its day, it would have been a massive centre for entertainment, being at the heart of the British Empire, especially during Victorian times. A bit further along we can see we have a very smart looking building here, which is both the W Hotel as well as the M&M shop. Building on the other side is a Lego centre, and in the middle we have a glockenspiel. And the reason we have that is that this building on our left used to be the Swiss centre, and the glockenspiel has 27 bells and 11 figures as well as a clock. Now the road that we see going up here is Waldorf Street, and this road goes all the way up to Oxford Street through Soho, as well as all the way down towards Pall Mall. What we're going to go along is Coventry Street, and Coventry Street, if we have a look at some of the pictures here, we can see that it's got a number of eating houses as well as theatres and the Trocadero, but we'll have a look at that in a bit more detail. So we'll come up the street past the Trocadero and then end up at the Haymarket, which is what I just want to look at in a bit more detail. Before we look at the Criterion building in front of us, we're just going to swing around and have a look at Coventry Street. Now, Coventry Street was given to Henry Coventry by Charles II to develop as an entertainment district, which would include gambling, nightclubs, theatres and other events. And as you can see, we have the Prince Edward Theatre here. And we'll have a look at the theatres in a bit more detail in a second. But you'll also see that the Trocadero, which is opposite the theatre, was built in 1896, and it was built on the original site of the Argyle Rooms, which was a notorious place for prostitutes and other forms of activity at the time. It was put together as a restaurant by J. Lyons, who was known for his tea shops at the time, but he built it in a very Baroque style, with grand staircases and long bars, and it lasted all the way up until about 1984, and then it became a entertainment venue, and I think today it houses something called the Crystal Maze. Now, if we swing around a little bit down in here, we're down towards the Haymarket. So we've got the Criterion building in front of us, and then we've got the Haymarket and the Haymarket Theatre down towards the bottom. Now, this was a entertainment area for the Victorians and the Georgians. We have the Theatre Royal, which dates from 1720, the third oldest in London. We've got Her Majesty Theatre, which was built in 1705. And then we also have the Prince Edward Theatre, which we've just talked about, which is quite new in 1930. And then we have the Harold Pinter one in 1881. Now, the building we see in front of us, which is the Criterion building, was built in 1873. And you'll see that at the bottom there is some horses, and at the top are three figures. So these are the horses of Helios and the daughters of Helios. And Helios was the personification of the sun in Greek mythology, and the horses pulled the chariot across the sky. And the three daughters of Helios were splendour, good character and festivities, which is very fitting for this area. Now, the building itself dates back to 1873, and it was built by a theatre architect called Thomas Verity in what is called Neo-Byzantine style. And in 2015, it was noted in the Huffington Post as being the top 10 historical restaurants in the world. For those who are used to playing Monopoly, you may have also noticed that in this particular route we do cover the yellow cards on the Monopoly board, that being Leicester Square, £260, Coventry Street, £260, and Piccadilly, £280. Okay, so let's move along and get to the end of this particular route. So this section of the run ends at Piccadilly Circus outside the Shaftesbury Memorial, which a lot of people will know as Eros, but is in fact Anti-Eros, who is the brother of Eros and is the god of unrequited love. The actual angel is known as the Angel of Christianity and is on what is called the Shaftesbury Memorial. This was the first aluminium sculpture at the time, and it was dedicated to the philosopher Lord Shaftesbury, who did a lot of work in reforming the mines, child labour and lunacy laws during the Victorian period. The next thing to notice is the lights at Piccadilly Circus, which have been there since 1908, and the first advert was for Perrier. They used to go all the way round, but now they're just on the northwest corner. But these signs have had a lot of links to both drink, such as Guinness, Foster's and Coke, as well as to electronics, such as Samsung and Canon. They've only been switched off twice. One was for the funeral of Winston Churchill, and the other one was for Diana, the Princess of Wales, when she died. And just next to the lights we have the London Pavilion, which was originally built in 1859, became a cinema in 1934, and now is the Ripley Believe It or Not exhibition, as well as the Bodyworks. And that ends this part of the run.